Kota picks up his handheld gaming device and loads up his new obsession, a popular MMORPG zombie game. The minute his character loads into a medieval zombie setting, Kota finds himself staring at multiple zombies, attacking different parts of the city, terrorizing people, and wreaking havoc at every turn, all while being led around by a giant hunk of rotting zombie flesh. Kota identifies as the boss. In the first few moments upon his arrival, Kota wastes some seconds of his time killing off small fries and saving NPCs that are just pixels on his screen. Thereafter, he gets up to a high vantage point, lights up 2 Molotov cocktails, hurls them at the zombie boss's head while lunging toward it, and slams his weird weapon into the zombie boss's mouth, killing it in the process. Soon after killing the zombie boss, a message box window pops up in front of Kota's character, congratulating him for clearing the S-rated ultra-hard mode game boss, and raising his evaluation ranking to the second best player in the entire world. Despite having achieved such remarkable success in the game, Kota's character frowns and returns to the real world in no time. Once he's back in the real world, Kota, who's currently in a lecture theater lazing around after a boring lecture, blames himself for fighting small fries and trying to save NPCs, which ended up costing him 30 seconds more than the required time to get to first place. However, just as he's about to try his luck one more time, his childhood friend, a beautiful lady named Ayaka, taps his back and asks if he's playing games again. Although shocked at first, when he realizes that the person tapping his back was Ayaka, Kota sighs and tells her to leave him alone, because he's busy. Unable to do that, Ayaka politely confronts him for being rude to his precious childhood friend. But then Kota, while checking out 3 dudes chit-chatting with one of them holding a bat at the back, tells her that the term is just ancient history. Before long, Ayaka's friends, who are also all girls, spot her talking to the loser and invite her to move with them to the next classroom. After assuring them that she's going to join them, Ayaka asks if Kota could also tag along with them. Around that same time, one of Kota's worst bullies, a red-headed unidentified schmuck, approaches Ayaka and Kota and asks the beautiful lady why she's volunteering with the bottom-tier loser. Irritated by his description of her friend, Ayaka calls him out for referring to Kota like that, calling his words cruel, but the redhead tells her that since Kota's a guy who wastes time playing stupid games in college, then he's sure that bro's definitely going to be a life failure who won't amount to anything. When Kota notices Ayaka's friends doubling down on what his bully had just said, he turns to Ayaka, lets her know that he doesn't really care what they think of him, and then urges her to just go with her friends. As soon as she turns her back to leave, the redhead puts his arm around Kota, tells him he's also gunning for Ayaka's heart, and then leaves with his buddies after saying more demeaning things to poor Kota. Thereafter, Kota complains about the annoying people he has to deal with daily, but soon stops yapping when he spots a blinding light emanating from the middle of the city on the horizon. At first, Kota dismisses the weird light as some sort of government project, but not too long after it appears, it spreads outwards to engulf the entire city. In a matter of seconds, the emergency sirens all over Kota's college go off as the light reaches the college building, and the entire school is sent into a dangerous blackout. By this time, several students wonder what that loud noise they just heard seconds ago might be, while other nonchalant ones urge everyone to calm down till things eventually return to normal. Kota, on the other hand, knows something seriously wrong, so he tells his colleagues that something's wrong, but the red-headed bully teases him for being scared and cowardly and passes everything off as some art class prop stuff. Just a second later, an explosion occurs behind the redhead bully, and before long, a humanoid zombie slowly walks in erratically, trying to figure out its next victims. Although everyone knows that the monster's a clear zombie, the delusional ones still refuse to believe that the zombie's real, because they all think that the scenario is just a super realistic film club shooting. At one point in the encounter, an idiot picks up his phone, moves close to the zombie, and tries to take a selfie with it so he can post it on social media. However, to his dismay, the moment he gets too close, the zombie bites off half of his left arm and pins him to the ground. As the guy screams his lungs out, the others quickly realize that this zombie means business, but at that time, they did nothing but watch the hungry zombie tear this brainless oaf apart like a slab of meat. Shortly after processing the horrific scene, the other students scramble for dear life as they try to figure out where they can run. When Kota realizes that the entire school is infested with those pesky zombies, he pauses for a moment and thinks about everything that's happened so far. Lights enveloping the city, siren sounds, and the zombies in question. At this point, he realizes that the development is exactly the same as the opening scenario in his zombie game. As he continues running, his in-real-life status screen opens up and welcomes him to the zombie world. However, this time around, the difficulty level of the scenario is set to 0, and his inventory is empty. While he's not sure if whatever he's seeing is real or not, Kota knows that if he doesn't do something to these zombies as quickly as possible, then everyone in that spot will be devoured without exception. So, while the other trapped students continue searching for a safe place to evacuate to, Kota, after taking another look at his empty inventory, figures that if this new reality is real, then he's powerless against these zombies with his bare hands. As such, to avoid dying, he carefully considers using tools skillfully, just like he did in the game, and instantly searches his surroundings for a sharp object he can arm himself with. By that time, a zombie breaks through their classroom door and charges at one idiotic student to eat him. Luckily for the student, before the zombie can eat his butt, Kota pushes the zombie away from the student with a chair, and tells his colleagues to barricade the door with all the chairs they can find. At first, the idiots stare at him like fools, but when Kota lets them know what happens if they don't listen to him, their last brain cell gets activated, and they all get down to barricading the entrance door. Soon after, Kota pushes the annoying zombie out of the window, along with the chair, and heaves a sigh of relief when he spots the door being barricaded. While he catches his breath, Kota's other negative IQ colleagues desperately wave their phones around the room to search for a good phone signal they can connect to so they can call emergency services. Along the line, they chat amongst themselves, asking each other if these monsters are zombies. And while they're at it, Kota, who's currently staring out the window, slowly realizes just how cooked they all are. For starters, he suspects that they're almost definitely in another world inside the zombie game. But this time around, those who get eaten will really die in real life. Also, while it may look safe to be holed up inside that spot for a couple of weeks, Kota knows that the food they have won't even last them a day, and this brings him to the next inevitable decision they all have to make: go outside to search for food and answers. Before getting to that, Kota finds a mop nearby, breaks the stick, and creates a makeshift weapon he can defend himself with for now. However, just as he's about to leave the classroom, the red-headed fool from earlier asks him to explain where he's going on his own, after which he suggests that he wait with them till rescue comes. At this point, Kota pauses and tells the bozo, alongside every other student in the class with him, that rescue probably won't be coming for them at all. Hearing this, the redhead dude, who straight up refuses to listen to reason, confronts Kota the loner for suddenly trying to take charge, but then Kota turns and lets him know that there's a high chance they've all been transported along with the entire university to another world that's crawling with zombies. Although confused, the entire class listens in silence, as Kota continues to explain how the buildings that should have been visible outside have completely disappeared, and how the phones don't work either. Shortly after talking about moving quickly to a safe room to avoid dying, saying that there should be several safe spots within the university grounds, Kota asks the students if any one of them would like to tag along with him so they can figure this out together. Unfortunately for him, after a brief silence, the entire classroom erupts in laughter because, apparently, nobody believes a word he just said. After getting himself a good laugh, the red-headed fool tells Kota, whom he calls Game Brain, to go die by himself if he so badly wants to die. By this time, Kota bids them farewell, opens the entrance door, and slowly creeps into the quiet corridor to begin his exploration. While outside, he spots docile zombies standing all over the corridor and silently reminds himself to go to that place to confirm if they're really in the game world. Just then, Ayaka slips out of the entrance door, holding a broken mop stick, and complains about how many zombies are in the corridor. When Kota asks her what she's doing there, she tells him that she's coming with him because she's worried about him being alone. Before he can even respond, Kota's second childhood friend, Ryoma, aka the blonde guy holding a baseball bat earlier, also busts out of the classroom and tells Kota that he's only tagging along because he wants to protect Ayaka, not that he's worried about Kota in any way. By that time, Ayaka notices the rivalry between the boys, and she asks Ryoma why he's being so hostile to Kota, with whom he used to get along pretty well back in the day. With not much time to talk, Kota urges his peers to keep their mouths shut so they can carefully sneak out of the university building, making less noise to avoid waking the docile zombies. Not too long after they begin tiptoeing, Ayaka steps on some broken glass, which makes the noise that awakens the zombies, and in less than a minute, a zombie lunges at Ayaka to eat her up. To protect her, Ryoma slams his baseball bat into the attacking zombie's shoulder, crushing its bones in the process, and leaves it to die in pain. However, to his surprise, the zombie gets back up, grabs the bat, and begins attacking Ryoma instead. Thankfully, before poor Ryoma gets eaten up, Kota swoops in after telling Ryoma and Ayaka to duck, and stabs the zombie in the head to kill it. Along the way, Kota gets to experience the real feeling of crushing a zombie's brain, and is terrified by it. Nonetheless, after killing off the zombie, he tells his friends to aim for the zombie's weak point, which is the head, next time, and Ryoma then asks him if everything he said earlier about the zombie world being their reality is true. As they continue making their way out of the school building, Kota says he doesn't have enough confirmation yet, but still urges his buddies to hurry up so he can quickly check if that thing exists. If by chance the totem he's searching for exists, then Kota's worst fears will be confirmed, and that'll be bad for humanity as a whole. However, for now, he sticks to surviving the deadly streets of the zombie-infested city alongside Ryoma and Ayaka, and keeps running till they all eventually make it out of the school premises. Upon reaching the ruined city of their new reality, Ryoma asks Kota, after running for a few more minutes, if they've finally shaken the monsters off, and Kota tells him that they have. Soon after, Ayaka, who's been looking around the rundown city since they arrived, finally asks Kota if he knows what the hell happened to the city, but then Kota lets her know that he's never been to that city before. Some moments later, after running for a few more seconds, Kota and company finally arrive at a station none of them can recognize. Before getting inside, however, Ryoma urges Kota to explain what's happening, and he assures them that everything will become clearer if they can get down there. Shortly after exploring the station for a few minutes, Kota and his peers finally arrive in a room housing the floating totem he's been looking for. As Ayaka and Ryoma stare at the unbelievably large green chess piece-looking glowing thing, wondering why the totem is in a place like that, Kota, on the other hand, is busy talking about how incredible and beautifully detailed the totem is. Seconds later, he extends his hand to touch it, and when Ayaka tries to stop him, Ryoma pulls her back because he feels that the totem's dangerous. Eventually, Kota takes the gamble and touches the totem with courage. Almost instantly, he feels a sudden rush of power coursing through his veins, and, soon enough, red electricity begins crackling all around his body. As soon as his transformation is complete, Kota gets registered as a game player and unlocks his initial skills as a beginner. Before long, his inventory gets stocked with his initial equipment, making Kota understand just how useful a player awakening really is, and so he chills out for half a minute to understand his new self. Once he's done accepting his new self, Kota turns to his buddies so he can explain the situation to them, but before he's even able to say anything useful, the zombies chasing them earlier show up at the barricaded door of the subway station, and soon gain access to the totem room. Around this same time, Kota knows that there's no escape route for them, judging by the sheer number of zombies present. However, since he's the only one who's awakened and can protect both his friends, he steps forward, opens his inventory, checks out his initial equipment, which turns out to be a sword, and grabs what he calls his specialty of specialties weapon. By the time the zombie monsters charge toward him, Kota skillfully cuts down a huge bunch of them in one fell swoop, and continues attacking every single zombie, charging at him, all while learning and understanding how to move and defeat them effectively. In no time at all, Kota masters the sword art and kills off several zombies at a go. At one point in his fight against the zombies, however, Dude gets complacent and distracted. Thankfully, before a bunch of other zombies attached to the ceiling attack him, Ryoma screams at him and lets him know that there are zombies attached to the ceiling. With no time to waste, Kota checks his skill list to see if there's an available skill for him to take them all out at once. The moment he spots the double slash skill, Kota activates it and uses it to kill off all the ceiling zombies in record time. In the aftermath of the fight, Kota breathes heavily, unable to believe he just killed off a bunch of zombies, and eventually gets the confirmation he needs to conclude that the world they're trapped in isn't a dream or a reality show. If anything, it's something else. Not too long after, Ryoma asks Kota about the sword skills and the fight that happened just now, seeing as Kota was lazy and useless before, but then Kota tells them to calm down first because he's just as confused as both of them. Now that everything's clear and obvious to him, he does tell his friends that the world they're currently trapped in isn't the real world, like he initially thought. Rather, the world they're in is the escape of the zombie world, a zombie survival game, commonly known as EOZ's world. Considering everything he's learned so far, Kota tells his friends that they've all been transported, along with their university, into the game world, and have also been chosen as its survivalist players. So after hearing everything Kota just laid out, Ryoma's not buying any of this crazy story, and straight up demands proof that what Kota's saying is actually legit. To show them he's not making this up, Kota tells them to hold out their hands and say, "Status open." They're both pretty skeptical about it, but Ayaka and Ryoma go along with it anyway, and boom, they each get their own status screens just like Kota's, which absolutely blows Ryoma's mind. While they're both messing around with their status screens, Kota starts breaking down how the actual game interface works. To make it crystal clear, he pulls out his handheld gaming device and puts the status screen from the EOZ game app right next to their real-life status screens, so they can see for themselves that they're pretty much identical. After seeing all the evidence right in front of him, Ryoma calls the whole thing some kind of miraculous coincidence, and then has the audacity to blame Kota, who literally almost died saving his dumb butt for causing all of this. Even though Ryoma's being an absolute idiot right now, Kota stays cool and helps the guy understand that he had nothing to do with making the game world real. Anyway, Ayaka asks Kota to break down what this game is really about, and he tells her it's a game where they have to escape from a zombie-infested city after clearing all the main quests without dying. On top of that, Kota explains that to actually start the main quest, they both need to touch the totem and register as players, just like he did before. But before they get to that part, Ayaka starts getting nervous and asks Kota if they're seriously going to have to fight those monsters with actual weapons. Kota confirms that yeah, there's no way around it, saying he's planning to push forward and escape the city to beat the game. Then Ryoma, being the white knight he is, picks up on Ayaka's hesitation and decides he'll touch the totem by himself, so he can get strong like Kota and protect Ayaka, his precious princess, and get her home safe. Thankfully, before this narcissist gets his moment, Ayaka, who refuses to die in some pathetic place like this city, finds her courage and decides to touch the totem too. With everything ready to go, Ryoma and Ayaka touch the totem at the same time. Ryoma suddenly gets hit with this massive surge of power, while Ayaka loses her expensive coat, and both of them go through transformations that completely change their physical abilities. Right after watching them transform, Ayaka gets this new pink jacket, which Kota says is slightly better starter gear that's way more durable and reliable than normal clothes, and she immediately forgets all about her old, expensive jacket. Once their transformations are done, Kota tells both of them to check their starting stats and equip their weapons. When Ryoma opens his inventory, he's totally bummed out to see that his starting weapon is just a baseball bat. As for Ayaka, she gets a pink glowing bow with unlimited ammo, and Kota, seeing how the game world is giving them weapons that match their playstyles based on their talents, figures they're all set. A little while later, the three of them sneak back out of the station and head toward the starting point of the first quest. On the way there, Kota teaches the other two how to find their next destination using the in-game map from their status screens. But pretty soon, they come across a huge horde and duck for cover when they realize the zombies don't show up on the map, unlike in the actual game. A few minutes later, as they're trying to sneak around carefully, Ryoma gets jumped by zombies from behind. Luckily for him, before one of the zombies can bite him, he quickly pulls out his baseball bat and smacks the zombie right in the jaw. Right after that, he finishes it off by slamming the bat down a second time and completely taking its head off in one smooth motion. After realizing just how strong he actually is, this fool starts getting all cocky and full of himself, not noticing that there are more zombies right behind him just waiting for their turn to tear into him. When one of the other zombies eventually jumps on his back and pins his arms and bat down, Ryoma realizes he's totally screwed if he doesn't do something fast. Lucky for the idiot, Ayaka shoots the zombie right in the eye, saving Ryoma in the process, and she feels pretty proud of herself for finally saving one of her friends. Right after getting back on his feet, Ryoma gets ready for round 2 and exchanges some encouraging words with Ayaka so they can take out the zombies as fast as possible. Just as they're about to attack, Kota calls out and tells them to hold up a sec, so he can finish explaining the risks and limits of their powers. But before he can get his message across, Ryoma and Ayaka just go ahead and start killing as many zombies as they can in a short time. Not long after they start their killing spree, Ryoma's strength gets drained super fast, leaving him stuck and unable to move, and Ayaka follows right after. As the two of them look to Kota for answers, Kota calmly tells them to actually listen to his full explanation before running off and doing whatever they want, and they give him their full attention. About what just happened to them, Kota calls it a stamina-depleted state and explains that players who get stronger through awakening always have to pay a price. While it's obvious that stamina is needed for everything they do, once their stamina runs out, they won't be able to use weapons or even run. Because of this, Kota tells them to avoid fighting as much as possible and stick to stealth, only fighting when they absolutely have no other option. After hearing Koda's explanation, Ryoma complains that stealth really isn't his thing, but Koda tells him he'll end up as zombie Chow if he doesn't suck it up and deal with it. To drive home how serious their situation is, he reminds them of that guy who got brutally killed by a zombie in the classroom during the early stages of this whole event, then adds that while it was possible to respawn over and over if they died in the game, in this reality though, if they die, that's it, game over. At this point, Ayaka apologizes for being stupid earlier, and promises along with Ryoma to always follow Koda's instructions from now on. With that settled, Koda and his friends keep moving toward the first quest. After walking for a few more minutes though, Koda notices something that makes his whole body freeze up in fear, and Ayaka, who sees him reacting to something, asks if something's suddenly wrong. With no time to explain anything, Koda tells them to hurry, and as they run toward the first quest, Koda mutters to himself without letting the other two hear, like something terrifying is heading their way. After running around the city for another hour, Ryoma asks Koda, while they're crossing over a zombie horde on this narrow, banner-like metal bridge, why they have to take such an extreme route to get to the main quest location. Instead of answering, Koda just hurries the other two along because this narrow path is the shortest route they've got right now. As they climb up the other side of the pathway, Ayaka asks Koda why he seems to be in such a rush, and he tells her it's because they need to clear the quest before nightfall. Confused, Ayaka asks again, what happens when night comes? But Koda dodges the question like usual, as they arrive at the location for the first quest and starts explaining what they need to do to pass the first quest before it gets dark. For starters, Koda shows his friends the electromagnetic wave generator switch on the other side of the scaffolding they're standing on and explains that they have to flip that switch to activate the device so it can wipe out all the zombies inside the building in one shot before they can complete the main quest. Before long, Ryoma asks him how he plans on getting to the other side, seeing as neither of them has enough stamina to make it through while fighting the zombies, and Koda tells him that he and Ayaka will distract the zombies with a loud noise as they protect themselves on a scaffolding up front, while he, on the other hand, will climb and slide down a crane in the opposite side to get to the switch in no time. Hearing this, Ayaka tries letting him know just how dangerous that sounds, but Koda assures her that he has cleared that level too many times to make a mistake now. Upon stopping her from discouraging Koda again, Ryoma turns to his frenemy and warns him to make sure he succeeds in this first main quest. Once the stage is set, and all three are in agreement over their roles in this quest, Koda starts a countdown to begin the quest. The moment he gives the other two the go-ahead to begin their attempt at the quest, Ryoma and Ayaka instantly get on top of the scaffolding they saw earlier and make several loud noises to attract all the docile zombies in the area. As soon as the dumb zombies take the bait, Ayaka gives Koda the signal to get going, and so Koda, after begging his guys not to get themselves killed, begins his run for the switch. Unfortunately for him, when he gets on top of the crane, he spots a few zombies already waiting to welcome him to their dinner table, but then Koda, who knows that he does not have time to deal with them, dodges all their attacks at once and jumps for the crane's hook. When he finally catches and latches onto the hook, Koda swings it back and forth a few times to propel the hook forward. However, just as he is about to jump to the other side, he spots 3 zombies at his landing point, roaming around, and ends up jumping anyway, hoping to handle them without any hassle. Just as he is about to land, however, he summons his sword from his inventory and skillfully takes out 2 of them before sticking to a rough landing, losing his weapon in the process. Luckily for him, just as the final zombie is about to bite his head off, Ayaka's pink arrow hits it in the head and kills it instantly, and Koda, having realized what she just did, thanks her for saving him. Not too long after, Ryoma lets him know that he cannot hold on much longer, meaning he needs to hurry, and Koda instantly continues heading toward the switch after asking his buddy for a little more time. As he runs the rest of the journey to the switch, Koda navigates his way through the stragglers hanging around that spot, jumps as high as he can above all of them, and ends up pulling the switch just milliseconds before all the zombies there touch him. In the blink of an eye, the fail-safe device in the building gets activated, and before long, the entire horde of zombies trapped inside that building is vaporized into thin air by a blinding light. In the aftermath of the final strike, Ayaka asks Ryoma, with Koda absent, if the zombies' disappearance means that they have succeeded at completing the first strike, but then Ryoma, while ignoring her question, asks if she knows where Kota is. Just when they begin thinking that poor bro was crushed underneath the debris, Kota walks out of a pile of debris and urges his buddies not to kill him off on their own. While the other two welcome him back to the real world, Kota goes on about how he failed the landing, which he called dangerous, and then listens to Ryoma scold him for being scrawny from playing too many games. As the boys chill out like boys normally do, Ayaka interrupts and asks Kota to explain what happens now that they have cleared the quest. In response, Kota tells her that they are safe for now because they were able to clear the quest before nightfall. Around this same time, Ayaka asks Kota again why he is so afraid of the night, almost as if something dangerous is going to happen when it gets dark. But before Kota explains the scenario to her, the trio all hear human screams from a distance and rush over to the railing to check out what is happening outside. The moment Ryoma looks over the railing, peeping into the outside streets, what he sees there shocks the poor guy to the core. As it turns out, Ryoma, Kota, and Ayaka all saw a young dude like them get chased around the street by what seems to be a stronger and much faster zombie. Right after watching the weird, beast-like zombie monster loom over and rip the poor guy apart, a very terrified Ryoma asks Kota why the zombie they just saw was different from the other slow-walking zombies, and Kota says it is because zombies become more ferocious at night, making their speed and power completely on a different level compared to the day. By this time, Ayaka, who now understands why Kota was so afraid of the night earlier, asks Kota if the monsters will still attack them, but Kota assures her that they cannot attack them because he has acquired a safe room key from the quest they just finished. Seconds later, he takes out the key card, shows the other two, and continues explaining that the key leads to a place where they can spend that dangerous night in absolute safety, with enough food and water to survive all through the night. Having said all that, Kota and his buddies make their way to the safe room and spend the rest of the night there without any zombie disturbance. The following morning, Ayaka wakes up in a revealing pajama outfit and walks down to the dining room, yawning and stretching as much as possible to wake the rest of her slender body up. When he spots her, Ryoma greets her warmly, asking if she slept well, and Ayaka reveals that while she was scared of a zombie attack, she eventually fell asleep on the fluffy, soft bed. Moments later, when she joins the boys for breakfast, Ryoma compliments the state of the safe room, calling the food, water, and even electricity amazing, and Ayaka suggests that they all just hide in there forever, since it is like a shelter. Although Kota admits to liking that idea, he does let the other two know that the food in the room is very limited. So, while they are at it, he advises that they use the safe room as their base for leveling up, meaning they have to get properly equipped and then proceed to the next quest as soon as possible. Put simply, the trio will act during the day when the zombies are weak, and then survive the dangerous nights in the safe room. However, to survive well on that plan, Kota says they must never lose the key card to the safe room, or else they will be locked out of this luxury forever. That being said, Kota and his buddies gear up and continue exploring the surroundings once they are done with breakfast. Before embarking on their next destination, however, Ryoma asks Kota to explain where they are headed first, but just as Kota is about to explain, he notices movement nearby and quickly hides himself and his buddies in a nearby corner. Once the movements get much closer to them, the trio arm themselves and proceed to attack the culprits, thinking they were zombies. However, just as Kota is about to take one of the culprits' heads off, a voice screams out and begs him to wait first, claiming that they are not zombies, and Kota, after pausing in his tracks, finally recognizes the ones they thought to be culprits to be the wounded classmates they left back at the university grounds. After all the niceties, he asks them to explain what and why they have such terrible wounds on all their bodies, but before they are able to respond, Ayaka calls and urges both Kota and Ryoma to get all of them to the safe room for now. As they are about to leave for the safe room, the redhead Kota hater from before, now known as Hayato, calls everyone to wait, and then asks Kota how a weakling like him survived in this ruined world for so long. Thankfully, Ryoma intervenes before both Nimrods start fighting, and advises that they get to a safe place first before they sort themselves out. When they eventually get to the safe room, one of the classmates narrates everything they've had to face on the university grounds up until that point, and also adds that the university campus has been overrun with zombies. As the girls amongst them tear up, they talk about how confused and lost they were throughout the previous day, running all around, and oblivious to everything that's happened to everyone else, all while burying their heads in Ayaka's arms. Once they finish talking, two others turn to Kota and ask him what he and the other two have been doing so far, as well as how they even found a room like that in the debris. When Ayaka reveals that Kota found the place, the disgusting bully, Hayato, turns to Ayaka and confronts her and Kota for having it easy when they all went through hell to get there. Once Ayaka tries to clarify her response earlier, Kota intervenes and explains everything they've been doing so far to Hayato. Even after explaining how they awakened and cleared quests to obtain the key to the safe room, Hayato still refuses to believe the ridiculous story, as he asks for the basis for such a weird story. Around this time, Kota draws his sword from his inventory, showcases it to the clueless fool, and tells both him and everyone else asking where he got such a dangerous thing from, that the sword is the weapon that was given to him through the player registration system. Not too long after, Ayaka and Ryoma both showcase their bow and bats, respectively, all just to prove to the others that Kota's telling the truth. Soon after acting all cool and crazy with their special weapons, Ayaka suggests that they all take the rest of the students to the subway station totem so they can all get weapons upon their awakening. Hearing this, Kota starts a minute-long talk about survival rate, teamwork, and other benefits of getting registered all together. By this time, the other students, who used to think Kota was just a gloomy game otaku, suddenly realize just how cool and awesome his leadership is. With this, they all choose to believe in Kota and praise the shy main character a little bit. While Kota's all flattered to finally be recognized, behind the scenes, Hayato and his other jerks refuse to accept Kota's leadership, as they all think that he's still a bottom-tier otaku who's getting all cocky. Moments later, as Kota gears up to take the students to the subway station to get awakened, while it's still bright, he reminds everyone not to forget the location of the safe room because it's their lifeline to surviving in this zombie-infested world. Around this time, Hayato asks if Kota is insinuating that whoever has the safety room keycard is the most important, but just as Kota's about to answer him, Hayato punches him to the ground, grabs the keycard from his pocket, and informs everyone that he's going to be the new leader of their small group. Although confused by Hayato's stupidity, Ryoma gives the jerk a chance to return the keycard. But then Hayato threatens to smash Kota's brains out if Ryoma doesn't shut the hell up, and so Ryoma continues murmuring. To avoid any more fighting, Kota, who's just catching his breath, surrenders the safe room to Hayato, so he can do what he wants with it, and Hayato praises him, a loner, for doing the right thing. When the other students try to talk some sense into the narcissistic jerk, Hayato lets them know that he won't let anyone who opposes him into the safe room. At this point, the others just shut the guy up and conclude that they're going to follow Hayato till the end. As for Kota and his friends, Hayato pushes them out of the safe room and taunts Ayaka to stay behind if she can, before slamming the door shut on 3 of them. Shortly after getting thrown out, Ryoma helps Kota up and asks him why he's willingly giving Hayato the safe room they risked their lives for. Although Kota admits that he's frustrated, he does remind Ryoma that it's absolutely pointless to fight with classmates, aka their fellow humans, when the real enemies are the zombies. That being said, the trio continues strolling the streets to search for another safe room they can chill out in and spend the next few hours doing so. Somewhere along the way, Ayaka asks Kota for a solution to their safe room problem, knowing fully well that it's impossible to survive those monsters without a safe room, and Kota tells her that the fastest solution is to get a new safe room. At that point, Ryoma suggests they challenge the next quest, but with their current level, Kota tells Ryoma that clearing the second quest will be very difficult because there are several times more zombies waiting for them than in the first quest. Before giving up hope, however, Kota gets a better idea to skip the quest completion order and head to the craft machine first for weapon upgrades, but then he gets a little skeptical about putting Ayaka and Ryoma in danger because it's a forceful method. Even when Ryoma and Ayaka excitedly encourage him to lead them there, Kota lets them know that the area isn't a place they can challenge with their current level, and so he urges them to forget about it because it's too dangerous. Around this time, Ryoma notices Kota's worrisome attitude and teases him for being considerate of himself and Ayaka. For the next few seconds, they say all the right things to Kota, who's scared of putting both of them in more danger, and ultimately manage to convince him to let them take the challenge. Once Kota's convinced, he thanks them for standing by his side and takes them to the craft machine location. About an hour later, Kota and his buddies get to the craft machine location and approach the huge yellow rectangular box carefully. Before long, Ryoma asks Kota why this whole side quest thing seems so easy, seeing as they haven't found any zombies in sight so far. But to make him understand why, Kota begins by explaining what the craft machine does to enhance their weapons. If the mechanics of this weapon upgrade are like the game, then the moment they set a weapon in the machine, about 10 zombies appear around them, while they're weaponless, because their weapons are being enhanced at the moment, and they'll have to face them all barehanded. Supposing Kota's the only one there, then he'd have been killed instantly, given his current level. But now that he's there with comrades he can trust, Kota insinuates that Ayaka and Ryoma can hold off all the zombies with their weapons, at least until Kota's sword gets enhanced. By this time, Ayaka and Ryoma realize their role in this quest, and so they promise to help Kota to the best of their abilities by protecting him while his weapon is being enhanced. That being said, Kota double-checks with them to be sure they're okay with whatever happens, and once Ryoma assures him that they're ready to help, he begs them not to overdo their role and then proceeds to place his sword inside the craft machine. The moment the weapon enhancement begins, a bunch of zombies with numbers reaching as high as 20 to 30 zombies all appear and surround the kids in an instant. At that point, Ryoma and Ayaka get scared for their lives, seeing as the zombies clearly are more than 10, but just as Kota's about to abort the mission, due to the absurdity of the whole scenario, Ryoma and Ayaka urge him to stick to the plan first and think about consequences later. Once Kota agrees to stand back and wait till his weapon's fully upgraded, Ayaka and Ryoma get right to work, hitting, smashing, piercing, and stabbing as many zombies as they can in a short period with their weapons. At one point in their zombie brawl, Ryoma gets himself in a pinch and calls Ayaka for support. As Ayaka works on supporting him from the rear, Kota anxiously waits for his sword to be upgraded, as his precious childhood friends wait for him to be finished. Just as the weapon enhancement procedure is complete, Ryoma and Ayaka get overwhelmed by the numerous zombies attacking them. To protect Ayaka, Ryoma grabs 2 wooden slabs while giving her a chance to escape, and then covers himself with the slabs to buy himself a little more time. Unfortunately for him, though, the zombies all cluster around and cover him till he's no longer visible, leaving Ryoma with no other option but to accept his fate and die a hero since he's already reached his limit. Just then, as Ryoma's about to get bitten, Kota kills off all the zombies with his upgraded sword, shocking Ryoma in the process, and then teases Ryoma for always wanting to shoulder everything alone. Soon after clearing the zombies, Kota apologizes to his buddies for keeping them waiting and gets ready for his counterattack. Before poor bro can even start his attack, Ryoma and Ayaka rush over to him and start asking him about his enhanced weapon. After Kota tells them he got the weapon thanks to them, he's like, "Leave the zombies to me," and then goes charging at the enemy with his powered-up sword. On his first swing, Kota straight-up slices through multiple zombies all at once with crazy power that feels way beyond anything from the game. As more regular zombies start coming at the hyped-up gamer, Kota's grinning ear to ear and gives his friends the most insane show ever, slashing, chopping heads off, and tearing apart as many zombies as he can. At this point, both Ryoma and Ayaka finally get to see just how ridiculously strong enhanced weapons really are. So, once Kota's done wiping out the biggest threats, Ayaka and Ryoma run over to the craft machine and upgrade their weapons too, getting ready for the second quest. About an hour later, the trio shows up at this creepy-looking place that turns out to be a ruined toy mall, ready to tackle the second quest and secure another safe room before it gets dark. As they walk through the toy mall that's packed with super eerie and creepy plushies, mannequins, and dolls, Ayaka mentions how this second quest stage looks way creepier than usual. With less than an hour until sunset, Kota reminds his friends that they need to clear the place and get to the safe room in under an hour. Hearing this, Ryoma pulls out his enhanced baseball bat and suggests they just brute force their way through the second stage with their upgraded weapons. Before they can do that though, Kota stops him and explains that the second stage is loaded with traps that could literally kill them if they are not careful. After listening to Ryoma complain about how ridiculous it is to have traps in a place like this, Kota climbs down from the platform they are on to check if the path is safe, and tells Ayaka and Ryoma to follow once he gives them the signal. While he is carefully clearing the dangerous killer lasers that are strategically placed on the ground below them, Ayaka asks Kota if he is okay handling the traps by himself, and he assures her that since he has cleared and memorized the trap locations tons of times in the game, he should be fine. Besides, considering his friends are already at their physical limits from their earlier zombie battle, Kota feels like he owes it to them to protect them however he can. So with that, bro gears up and keeps tiptoeing all over the area up ahead to avoid stepping on any floor traps and mines. As the other two follow behind him, Ryoma gets bored and starts swinging his bat around. When Ayaka tells him to knock it off with the stupid stuff he is doing, Ryoma goes on about doing stealth, while being careful, shows off the hidden new feature of his enhanced weapon, and keeps swinging it around even more aggressively, hoping he can use the badass new weapon on zombies soon. The second Kota catches him, dropping his guard like an idiot. He tries to snap the fool back to reality, but unfortunately, before Ryoma can figure out what Kota is saying, he steps on a trap, sets it off, and releases these hidden wall zombie clowns on himself. In a split second, the moron gets surrounded and grabbed by these clown zombies, and immediately realizes this is the trap Kota has been warning them about the whole time. Luckily for him, Kota rushes in and kills off all the zombies, wrapping themselves around Ryoma before they can bite him. By the time more creepy zombies rush in to join the party, Kota charges at them with a loud roar and finishes them all off like it is nothing. After the attack, Ayaka scolds Kota for being a bit reckless, and then talks some sense into Ryoma to try to get him to apologize to Kota. When he finally does apologize, Kota, who is busy catching his breath, tells the dumbass to save his apology because they are almost at the goal. With that, Kota gets ready to activate the switch and clear the second quest before it is too late, since they have already gotten through the trap hell. Just as he is about to start the final parts of the quest, Ryoma moves forward carelessly again and steps on yet another trap, like a complete fool. As the trio gets even more trapped on that floor, Ayaka loses it and calls Ryoma an idiot for screwing up again. Even so, Kota says the situation is weird because he knows they have already passed the trap area and there should not be a trap like that at all. Not long after setting off the second trap, something fires a massive beam of energy at Ryoma to kill him instantly. Luckily for him, before the beam hits, Kota spots it and pushes him out of the way before he gets fried. Right after saving his friend, the trio spot a giant, creepy zombie looming over them, and Kota, who is just as shocked as the other two, wonders why such a tough boss is showing up in a place like this. While he stands there looking for answers that do not exist to his question, Ayaka, on the other hand, notices the huge zombie monster and comments on how terrifying its size is. As for Ryoma, who feels like beating the monster is his responsibility since he stepped on the trap, he charges at the monster, ignoring Kota's warnings not to attack it yet, and swings his fancy new enhanced bat, now equipped with flames, to attack the terrifying zombie monster. The moment he gets too close, the monster not only blocks the idiot's weak attacks, but it also slaps the crap out of the guy and sends him crashing down near his shocked friends. Thankfully, just seconds later, Ryoma gets back on his feet, angry and pissed off at the jerk who broke his enhanced weapon with just one hand. But then Kota explains to him that the jerk is a power-specialized enhanced mid-boss zombie, also known as Hammer Crusher. He goes on to explain how weird it is for a boss like this to suddenly show up at this point in the real-life game world, when back in the game, it is usually impossible for it to appear this early. To survive the fight though, Kota tells his friends to forget about defeating it because at their current level, they would get killed instantly. At this point, Ryoma asks if they should retreat, and Kota reminds them both that there is no escape route right now, because the path they came from got blocked when the thing appeared. In other words, the only way out is through the door that the monster is blocking. So to safely get out of there, the three of them need to attack the monster with everything they have and hopefully wear down its health over time. Since he is the fastest, Kota decides to draw the monster's attention, while Ayaka stops its movement with her specialty arrows, and Ryoma delivers a powerful hit to crush it in one shot. Right after explaining the plan to his friends, Kota gets straight to work, dodging, deflecting, and avoiding as many attacks from the giant as he can, all while taunting it and drawing its full attention on him alone by trash-talking the monster. By the time the monster gets super mad, it unleashes its claws and uses the lasers to try and slice Kota into tiny pieces, but to its disappointment, Kota dodges the attack and hurries to figure out how he can create a chance to strike. Just as the monster is about to take advantage of another opening on Kota's side, Ayaka swoops in and shoots several wind attribute-enhanced arrows at the monster, all of which end up turning into some sticky substance that pins the giant zombie monster down. Right after holding the monster down, she signals Kota and Ryoma to hit the monster with everything they have. Unfortunately, as the guys hit the monster with their strongest attacks, it disappears for a second, reappears above them, and attacks. In the first few attacks from the monster, Kota and Ryoma do their best to defend against all the strikes. However, at one point during the fight, the monster sucker punches Kota in the stomach and sends him crashing into a pillar behind Ryoma, knocking him out. Right after taking care of Kota, it grabs Ryoma, lifts him up, and throws him toward Ayaka after she tries shooting a useless arrow at it. After knocking all three of them out, the zombie monster roars, and Kota, who wakes up, calls out his friends' names to see if they are okay. When he gets no response, he suddenly realizes just how powerless they are against the monster, seeing as their strongest moves do not even phase it. If he does not think of a good strategy soon, then all three of them will end up getting killed. By the time the others wake up, Kota suddenly gets an idea to try out a particular attack style that requires 3 people to complete. With no other options or time left, Kota calls his buddies and tells them that their only chance at defeating the monster is through a burst attack. As Ryoma teases Kota for hiding such a powerful technique from them the entire time, Ayaka asks Kota to explain what kind of technique the burst attack is and Kota begins by telling his buddies that the burst attack is a nickname given by gamers, not an actual technique. As it turns out, back when EOZ was still a game, it had a bug that only happened when 3 people attacked at exactly the same time. Once the condition is met, a glitch occurs that generates a damage bonus dozens of times over, which gamers named the burst attack. However, Kota explains that the technique is super risky and has caused several cases of freezing and data crashes if it fails, meaning that if this technique fails in the real world, then all 3 of them might die or face something even worse. That being said, Ayaka asks if there is another approach they can take rather than bet on the slim possibility that they succeed, and Kota not only tells her that there is not, but he also adds that if there is even a fraction of a second's error in the 3-person simultaneous attack, then they are cooked. While he has heard that veteran players have had a success rate of below 5%, Kota admits that he has never really tried using that technique because he did not have any teammates to try it with, which is sad in itself. Around this time, Ryoma and Ayaka notice Kota looking dejected for fighting alone in the game. And so, to cheer him up, Ryoma and Ayaka both thank him for helping them survive that far, and encourage him to trust them to have his back as his real-life teammates, adding that their teamwork will not lose to pro gamers. After a quick huddle cheer with his buddies, Kota finally gets back his fighting spirit, so he thanks both Ryoma and Ayaka for cheering him up and urges them to do the burst attack together. With the stage set, Kota and both his buddies hide somewhere close to the monster and wait for Kota's signal to strike. Once all 3 are set and ready to go, Kota gives the order for all of them to get a move on, and, almost instantly, the 3 of them lunge at the monster from opposite directions and launch the burst attack on the monster. As soon as all 3 of them manage to land the simultaneous hit on the monster, a huge explosion ensues and almost destroys the entire stage for the second quest. Seconds after the explosion happens, Kota realizes that he stripped the monster's chest armor away, and so he proceeds to cut off the monster's neck to kill it completely. Unfortunately for him, before he even gets within an inch of the monster's neck, the angry zombie monster grabs his sword with its bare hands and locks him in an immobile position. At this point, Kota, who suddenly notices the immense power this crazy zombie still has, realizes that his stamina will not last in the position he is in. However, just as our loser gamer main character is about to give up, Ryoma and Ayaka appear behind him to encourage and back him up, so he can deliver the final blow with their support. Upon getting reminded that he is not alone in this game anymore, Kota gets that much-needed courage to refuse death and losing in such a situation. With his plot armor increased by his colleagues yapping, Kota eventually slices the monster's fingers, freeing himself from the monster's lockhold, and ultimately cuts the bastard's head off with his upgraded sword. Soon after killing off the humongous zombie monster, a keycard appears from its carcass, but while Kota just stands there in place, exhausted, Ayaka and Ryoma ignore him and focus all their attention on the keycard that just appeared, unsure of whether or not they just defeated the monster. Before long, Ayaka turns to Kota to tell him the good news, but just then, Kota loses consciousness and collapses, leaving both his friends rushing over and trying to wake him up before nightfall. Several hours later, Kota wakes up in a strange room, confused, and suddenly remembers that he was just fighting Hammer Crusher moments ago. When he jerks up, asking anybody around where and what happened to Hammer Crusher, Ayaka and Ryoma, who are nearby, at the dining table, making breakfast, realize that he is awake, so they greet him and ask about his health. By the time Ayaka moves close enough to Kota, he asks her to explain where they are, and Ayaka assures him that they are in the safe room. Apparently, after Kota collapsed from stamina depletion, Ayaka and Ryoma impressively picked up the keycard that Hammer Crusher dropped, and got to the current safe room they are in before nightfall. Upon hearing the full gist of all that happened while he was out, Kota gets sad and begins yapping about how his reckless strategy put them both in danger many times. Turns out bro thought he was trying to do something to better his tactics, but, in the long run, he ran out of stamina and collapsed. To cheer the loner bozo up, both Ayaka and Ryoma hug and let him know that he should learn to trust them more. After seeing all he has done to help them survive this far, Ayaka urges Kota to stop trying to shoulder everything alone and instead trust them to be his comrades. Following this, Ryoma also yaps about his mistakes and cockiness, and corroborates Ayaka's point about considering them as comrades. Eventually, when they are all done with the boring anime talk, or in this case, Manhwa talk, Kota finally decides to trust both of them as his comrades. That being said, he adds a few more corny lines of encouragement and ends all the gloomy talk so they can eat and begin their day. Over breakfast, Ayaka comments on the amazing attack power the burst attack had and suggests they continue relying on the technique in tough situations. On the contrary, Kota advises that they should not rely on the burst attack anymore, because it is a desperate cheat technique that will end up getting them killed. As such, he suggests they use this safe house as their base, just like they had planned for the first one, and level up properly before heading to the next quest. Also, since they have defeated the Hammer Crusher, Kota assures his teammates that there will not be enemies stronger than that appearing anytime soon. In his mind though, Kota remains certain that threats other than zombies should not exist in this game world, if the world is the same as the game world. Hours later, by nightfall, a small group of 3 human stragglers runs into a larger group of assholes. At first, the small group camps together and tries to reason with the larger group of assholes, citing that they are humans just like them, but unfortunately, before they even get a chance to defend themselves, the larger group douses all 3 of them in gasoline and lights them all on fire, claiming that they intend to use the fire to warm themselves up. As the trio gets burned in the flames, the assholes drink and enjoy the smell of singing human flesh. Along the line, one of the idiots praises the world where might makes right, and others claim that the city is theirs now since there is no police to catch them. Soon after burning those poor guys up, the leader of the gang tells his crew to get themselves ready to hunt down and burn every last human survivor when dawn breaks, and all the goons and delinquents in his team get ready for the human hunt that is going to happen in a few hours. The following morning, Kota and his buddies head out to the ruins to continue fighting the slower zombies so they can level up much faster and easily. After spending several hours fighting and killing off as many zombies as they can, when they can, even Ryoma, the musclehead, levels up pretty nicely. At this point, Kota commends everyone for doing a great job and decides to call it a day so they can return to the safe room in time before nightfall. Around this time, Ryoma suggests that since they have leveled up and gotten stronger, they might as well take on night zombies, who knows? They just might find out how weak those zombies are. While it is true that, at their current level, they might win in a one-on-one fight, Kota urges Ryoma not to forget that the zombies all attack in groups, meaning they will be at a disadvantage if they get cocky way too early. Understanding Kota's point, Ryoma gets obedient and tells Ayaka, who is glad to see him grown up, to obediently return to the safe room. The next day, the trio's out exploring the ruined city when Ayaka casually drops some comments about the world they're stuck in, the one that's literally inside a game. Not long after, Ryoma spots a body tucked away in a corner near where they're walking, and tells his friends he found someone collapsed nearby. When the other two come over to check it out, they realize this person's been dead for days, and they're wondering if zombies got him. Since regular slow zombies are dangerous enough for someone who hasn't awakened their abilities yet, Kota figures the guy must have been swarmed by a horde. But as they keep looking at the body, Kota suddenly notices a kitchen knife tucked into the back of the guy's pants and points it out to everyone. That's when Ryoma asks Kota the obvious question, do zombies even use kitchen knives to kill people? Kota tells him straight up that weapon-using zombies don't exist in the game, which leads them to the scary question they've all been avoiding. Does this mean a human killed this guy? At first, Kota refuses to believe it because he knows player killers aren't a thing in the EOZ game. When Ryoma asks what player killers even means, Kota literally demonstrates by punching Ryoma in the face, which hurts like crazy, and then explains that Ryoma's HP shouldn't go down from getting hit. But to his shock, Ryoma's HP actually starts dropping, and now Kota's freaking out because his worst fear might be coming true. While Ryoma's yelling at him for hitting him so hard it actually hurt, Kota's over here wondering why this real-life game world doesn't have the protection that stops players from hurting each other. Based on everything he knows about the game, hitting Ryoma shouldn't have hurt him at all. So if it did hurt him, does that mean humans can be enemies too? Right then, Ryoma reminds Kota that he was in serious pain when Hayato hit him back at the first safe house, and Kota suddenly realizes Ryoma's right. He just didn't notice the pain at the time because he was too scared to think about it. With all the evidence piling up, Ayaka asks if he's sure now that a murder actually happened, and Kota, really not wanting to believe it, tells them they need to get back to the safe room quick before things get worse. Later that night, before bed, Kota calls his friends together for a meeting and says they need to sort out what's going on. Given that the mid-level boss showing up at the second quest stage was weird, and now this murder, Kota concludes that things are happening differently from the game he knows. But just as he's about to keep explaining, a walkie-talkie radio on the shelf behind them suddenly crackles to life with what sounds like a distress call from another group of survivors. Without hesitating, Kota rushes to the radio after recognizing it as an emergency transmission from another safe room and turns on the speaker so they can all hear. From the sound of the voice, Ayaka recognizes it as Eri, a blonde classmate who stayed behind with Hayato, so she tries talking to her to figure out what the hell's happening back there. The second Eri realizes it's Ayaka. She begs her to come help because there are dangerous guys with weapons attacking them for no reason. Before long, one of the dangerous guys reaches Eri and kills her, leaving the line filled with static for for a second before it cuts off completely. After trying and failing multiple times to reconnect with Eri, Ayaka and Ryoma turn to Kota for answers and what they should do. But by then, Kota's just frozen in shock because he just realized his worst fear came true. The real-life EOZ world they're in is completely different from the game he knows. As he's struggling to process this new development, wondering what the hell's happening to this world, Ayaka tells the boys they have to go save Eri and the others. When Ryoma warns her about the dangers of night zombies, since it's almost nighttime, Ayaka says she just can't let her classmates die like that, even if it's super dangerous to go rescue them. By the time Kota snaps out of it, he tells Ryoma and Ayaka they're leaving their safe zone to rescue them because the radio signal came from the previous safe room. If they hurry, they can still make it before something really bad goes down. Before deciding to follow him though, Ayaka asks Kota if it's okay for them to risk their lives for these jerks, and Kota tells her he's just being a good friend. Nothing more. With that said, Kota rushes both his friends, and Ryoma and Ayaka hit the streets after thanking him for being so reliable. About 30 minutes later, when they reach the first safe room location, Kota and his friends hide for a few minutes and watch the area to avoid alerting the super-sensitive night zombies, who are way more sensitive to sounds. Once they notice the entrance door to the first safe room is slightly open, Ayaka leads the guys toward the room, opens the door wider, and calls out Eri's name, hoping to get a response so they can save everyone. At first, when the trio sees how dark the room is, they give up, thinking it's already too late to save their friends. But not long after they arrive, Eri and the other scrawny blonde dude who used to follow her around recognize Ayaka's voice and reveal where they're hiding. Seeing Eri and the other guy safe, Ayaka breathes a huge sigh of relief as the four-eyed blonde Eri follower genuinely thanks them for coming to help. When Kota asks about Hayato and the others, Eri tells them everything that went down during the invasion. Apparently, that idiot Hayato willingly opened the door for some random strangers, then acted all scared and shocked when the armed dudes confronted them. Once the armed men saw all the food and supplies Hayato's team had stocked up, they got way more violent. During the confrontation, Hayato asks the armed guys why they're attacking his group when they're all human, but instead of giving him a real answer, the psycho slams him to the ground and bashes his head with a rusty baseball bat. Long story short, Eri tells Kota they let an armed group of over 10 people invade the safe room and had all their food stolen. While she and Four Eyes managed to hide and survive, Hayato and everyone else got captured and taken away. After hearing everything Eri just said, Kota figures this attack by armed humans wasn't a game development at all. If anything, Ayaka thinks it's like those dangerous people are also humans who got transported to this world, just like them. As the others try to figure out who these attackers were, Four Eyes suddenly remembers something and tells the group he thinks those guys are definitely senior students from their school who had rumors about being involved in violent incidents. If that's true, then Ryoma knows they're going to be way harder to deal with than zombies. Hearing this, Kota asks Four Eyes if he knows where they went, and he says he overheard them talking about heading to a supermarket. Realizing the supermarket isn't that far, Kota considers going there to save the others before nightfall. But before they leave for the supermarket, Ryoma scolds Eri and Four Eyes, calling them idiots for taking the safe room from them and then letting outside enemies invade so easily. While Ayaka tells him to just forget about that already, Kota's thinking about the recent events, the mid-level boss appearing at an early stage, and now thugs attacking other humans, and he finally accepts that his game knowledge doesn't apply to this world anymore. In other words, he can't use the same strategies he used in the game ever again, or they won't survive very long. So right then, Four Eyes taps Kota on the back and asks if he's at least gonna try to save Hayato and the others, pointing out that even though Hayato's super annoying, he's still their friend. Before Kota can even answer, Ryoma tells the glasses guy that even if they wanted to help, they have no clue how to pull it off. That's when Kota gets this brilliant idea and tells his friends he knows a way they can save everyone without anyone getting hurt. Since they only have until sunset before the zombies show up, Kota says they need to rescue everyone and get back before dark. After listening to Ayaka say some encouraging stuff to stop Hayato and Kota from fighting again, Ryoma tells Kota to explain the plan on the way to the supermarket, since they're literally running out of time, and the three of them take off. Right before they leave though, Eri calls out to Kota, apologizes for treating him badly before, and thanks him for helping them. Since Kota also sees everyone as important friends, he tells them he's just trying to do the right thing, and then heads out with his buddies. When they get back on the street, running toward the supermarket, Kota asks Ayaka to let him borrow that weird device thing attached to her backpack, and Ayaka, who knows it's a security alarm, asks what he's planning to do with it. Once he tells her he's going to use it to rescue Hayato and the others without fighting, Ayaka talks about how surprising it is that someone like him would take on such a risky rescue mission. Kota explains that, since this world has become totally different from the game he knows, his guaranteed winning strategies won't work anymore. Also, since he just can't sit around and wait to die, he needs to step up and have the guts to jump into danger to make his own way forward. After hearing all that, Ayaka smiles and tells Kota how cool and dependable he's become these past few days. A few minutes later, Ryoma finds the supermarket they've been looking for and gets his friend's attention. After confirming it's the right supermarket, Kota and the other two spot the armed thugs hanging around and wrecking everything inside the supermarket. Just as Kota's about to go over their plan again, one of the thugs screams at Hayato for getting mouthy with him and threatens to kill him if he doesn't behave. Turns out Hayato's been staring at the guy with defiant eyes, and the guy couldn't take it anymore. So, as Kota changes their plans to save Hayato and the others right away, the thug picks up these huge pliers and is about to start ripping out Hayato's fingers one by one to make him behave. Luckily for Hayato, before the thug manages to pull off any of his fingers, an explosion goes off in the parking lot and distracts the thugs. While Kota and Ayaka rush inside to save the others, Ryoma, who's staying closer to the explosion, praises Kota for always coming up with awesome strategies and waits for the thugs to take the bait. Right after causing the explosion, Ayaka shoots an enhanced arrow at the explosion site, freaking out the thugs inside the supermarket even more, and makes them all think there's something dangerous in the parking lot outside, thinking it might be another one of those tough zombie monsters. The gang leader rallies his crew and rushes outside to the parking lot with them, leaving the kids behind, to kill off the monsters as soon as possible. So the plan was to first make loud noises at the parking lot to draw as many thugs outside as they could. Once that's done, the decoy will keep them busy and buy time for the other two to sneak in from the back entrance and rescue everyone without getting noticed. Earlier on, before the explosion, Kota volunteered to be the decoy because he knew the map well, but then Ryoma went against Kota's decision and chose to be the decoy instead, not just because tag is his thing, but also because his athletic build and skills make it way easier for him to outrun the street punks. Now that he's taken on that responsibility, Ryoma kind of regrets being so cocky because the thugs easily spot him and chase after him for ruining their peaceful evening, leaving him with no choice but to play a serious game of tag. Meanwhile, Kota and Ayaka, after seeing Ryoma lure the thugs far enough away, sneak into the supermarket from the back entrance. Once they're inside, they spot a guard and quickly get past the idiot, who doesn't seem to be a problem for them, to reach Hayato and the others. Right when Hayato and the other two captives are complaining and giving up hope of ever being saved, Kota and Ayaka show up and quietly call out to them, just to let them know they're there to rescue them. After seeing them both, the kids ask why they're there, and Ayaka says Eri told them everything that happened, so they came to help. With no time to waste, Kota unties everyone, including Hayato, and tells them all to head for the exit. While the other two captives thank Kota for helping them, Hayato, being the pathetic jerk he is, refuses to accept Kota's pity because it hurts his pride. At this point, Ayaka tells Hayato not to raise his voice since now isn't the time for that, but unfortunately for them, even after Kota suggests he just do what he's told, Hayato still refuses to accept the fact that he lost to those thugs during the invasion, saying he doesn't need Kota's help at all. During all the arguing and messing around, Hayato bumps into a stack of boxes behind him and accidentally knocks over several dozen more boxes, along with other metal stuff placed on the boxes. Upon hearing those loud sounds coming from inside, the thugs realize they're being tricked by the kids, and so they immediately head back to the supermarket to check on them. Right before the thugs return though, Kota tells Hayato to hurry up because he knows they definitely heard that noise, but sadly for them, the only female captive tells Ayaka and Kota that she can't run because the thugs hurt her. To avoid wasting more time, Kota wraps the girl's arms around his shoulder, tells Ayaka to cover them, and then tells Hayato to get ready to fight too. While Hayato keeps going on about leaving the dead weight behind, saying his smart survival skills will help him decide whether he lives or dies, the creepy, loud sound of several night zombies fills the entire room in seconds, making the foolish idiot cower in fear. At first, Ayaka and Kota struggle to actually understand what the sound is. However, pretty quickly, Kota realizes the night zombies are coming, and so he urgently tells everyone to retreat to the back of the store. Sadly for them, on their way to the back of the store, the thugs from earlier show up and block them from going any further, trapping them between the horde of night zombies coming for them and the useless thugs looking to kill them for fun. After the gang leader runs his foul mouth, threatening to never let any of them get away with trying to save the others, Kota asks the fool why they, as humans, just can't stop hurting each other, especially since the zombies are their common enemy, and the gang leader says they're doing it because it's fun. If anything, the fact that there are no rules or annoying authorities controlling their crappy lives in this world, the gang leader and his thugs let Kota know they have no intention of ever going back to the real world. Since everyone's gonna die anyway, he chooses to die having fun rather than live long just surviving. After hearing all the terrible things the leader had to say, Kota curses the jerk for abandoning his humanity, but the leader, who doesn't give a crap, gives their group a chance to choose how they die by getting eaten by the zombies or by the very humans they hate so much. So at this point, Kota's got this cocky grin on his face and goes with option 3 after totally flexing about their decision to bail into the supermarket storage room earlier. To pull off his plan, Kota whips out his sword, jumps super high to reach the railings and metal storage lockers, and just wrecks a bunch of those metal casings so they'll come crashing down on the thugs blocking their way. As everything starts going down, Kota turns to Ayaka to handle the rest of the plan, and Ayaka, after telling everyone else to stick close to her, teams up with Kota to attack the night zombies and slow them down however they can. At one point, while they're fighting the zombies, Kota gets stuck when one of the zombies wraps its tongue around his sword. Luckily, before the zombie can get to him, Ryoma shows up just in time and wipes out all the zombies swarming his buddy in one big move. After that, he brags about how his strength keeps leveling up, and Kota, after thanking him for saving his butt, tells them they need to escape now while they have the chance. But just when Kota and the other kids fight their way to freedom, the gang leader from before shows up out of nowhere near them and refuses to let them run away just yet. To help these idiots out, Kota tells them to stay quiet in the building if they still want to live and have a good time, because the night zombies are way more than they can handle. Unable to listen to reason, the gang leader screams at the top of his lungs, telling Kota to shut the hell up, and then saying he's not allowed to ever leave the supermarket. As the gang leader and his goons charge at the kids, trying to stop them and block their escape, the other night zombies drop from the ceiling and bite the hell out of the gang leader and the rest of his goons, turning them into zombies almost instantly. By the time the gang leader realizes he's done for, even with his dying breath, he refuses to let his life end in a place like that before killing Kota, the brat who beat him. So this dude makes sure to keep his consciousness and memories intact, even after he turns into a zombie, just to make sure he remembers his new enemy, Kota. About an hour later, Kota and the rest of the survivors finally get back to the planned meetup spot to rest and catch their breath, before moving on to the second safe house. The moment Eri sees the other girl with the injured leg, she hugs her tight, with tears on her face, and talks about how glad she is to see her looking safe. While the others are breathing hard, with Ryoma complaining about how he thought he was going to die, Four Eyes thanks Kota for saving everyone, and he says he's just glad he could keep his promise somehow. Not too long after, Hayato's lackey, the other guy who was captured, reminds Kota that those punks will definitely come to attack their spot again the next day if they don't get out of there quickly, but just then, Kota tells him he plans on moving them out of that spot by dawn. Confused, Four Eyes and Eri ask Kota where he's taking them, but instead of spoiling the surprise, Kota waits until dawn before revealing where the second safe room is. At sunrise, Kota takes everyone back to the second safe room, which impresses them all, and gives them all access to all the stuff inside the safe room. When Four Eyes brings up the problem of limited food, Kota assures the guy that they won't have to fight for food, because they'll leave that spot soon to search for an escape method. At this point, the other ladies, impressed by what Kota just said, praise him for being really reliable, and so they decide to follow his lead from now on. Around that same time, Hayato's lackey tells Hayato that he's realized they're the ones who were wrong, and so he feels like they should both cooperate with him. Once Ayaka sees Hayato staying silent, she realizes something's wrong, so she calls him and tries to get him to accept Kota as the leader of the group. Before long, Hayato snaps, telling Ayaka to shut the hell up, and then says he's never going to serve under some lame otaku loser because he feels like the leader of the group should be a strong man like him. That being said, the brainless idiot still tries to force the others to accept him as a better leader over Kota, claiming that the thug attack was just bad luck, and that he didn't do anything wrong. This time around, instead of letting him off the hook, the injured girl reveals the truth about the attack to everyone. It turns out the thugs invaded the safe room because Hayato forgot to close the entrance door to the safe house, which is just stupid. Hearing this injured girl talk, Hayato tries to bully her into admitting that what she just said is a lie, but the girl refuses to back down, saying that this moron still doesn't understand how dangerous the game world currently is, despite having gone through so many near-death experiences. Realizing his intimidation tactic failed, Hayato gets seriously pissed to the point where he raises his fist to punch the useless dead weight, who's only good at talking. Luckily, this time around, before the idiot does any harm to the poor lady, Eri and Four Eyes step up and lock the powerless loser's fist in place. Before Hayato can even process what's happening, Four Eyes and Eri tell him to just give up all that nonsense because nobody will listen to his stupid arguments anymore. Around this time, Hayato turns back, calls everyone idiots, and proceeds to leave the alliance that he calls the sinking ship. Just as he's about to leave, however, the injured girl calls him, and Hayato excitedly turns, hoping she'll talk about how she needs him, but when the girl only tells him to make sure he closes the door this time, he scoffs at the embarrassment and storms out of the building. Shortly after watching the idiot leave, Kota moves on to explain to the others that there are only two types of creatures, the humans and the zombies, and since they're all humans, he assures them he doesn't believe in this hierarchy nonsense, which means they need to work together and escape from the dangerous world as soon as possible. Upon hearing his explanation, Eri asks Kota to teach them all how to fight, promising they'll trust him with their lives, and Kota not only agrees to teach them, but he also instantly decides to start the lessons right away. If they're quick enough, then he's pretty confident he'll be able to drill all his knowledge into all of them in 2 days. So for the next 2 days, Kota gets the rest of his crew registered as players, and teaches them about all the various items that can be found everywhere in the zombie game world, including teaching them how to use the materials so they can become powerful weapons. At the end of their 2-day training session, Four Eyes and his crew find out about the first aid kit station that those punks use to survive their injuries. Although knowing how to use first aid is important, Kota does let them know that weapons are the most important materials they need when it comes to fighting zombies. To put everything they've learned so far into practice, Kota takes them to a spot filled with zombies, tells them to take out the weapons they got from the awakening, which they do, and gives them the signal to take down the slower zombies when they can. As the newbies fight and crush the zombies, Kota keeps teaching them about the zombies' weak point, which is the head, how easily they can beat them, and also their weakened vision and smell. Once all his students are done taking down the small horde, Kota tells them the various ways to catch the zombies off guard, not forgetting to mention just how important teamwork actually is. Before long, Eri and the other 3 level up, just like Kota told them earlier, and end their final training session after thanking Kota for all the help. Soon after giving Eri the responsibility to protect the safe room, Kota and his buddies move on to keep searching for a way to escape the game world. That being said, both groups split up and head their separate ways after saying goodbye to each other. On their way to the next quest, Ayaka says something about them being reliable all at once, but then Kota asks if she's okay with leaving her friends just like that, and Ayaka tells him she's fine because she doesn't need to worry about them anymore. If anything, she's more worried about Kota going off track and would gladly choose to stay by his side so she can watch over him. Having said all that, Ryoma pats Kota on the head, calling him a baby, and Kota reminds the guy of how he used to be the lonely crybaby back when they were younger. Upon remembering how little bro used to cry all the time, asking for her and Kota, Ayaka brings up the memories, and they all laugh as they continue their walk. Later that evening, the zombified gang leader, who still has his consciousness and intelligence, leaps from building to building with his zombified goons, smelling the air, and tracking Kota and his buddies down till he finds and kills them with his bare hands. Meanwhile, Kota and his buddies finally arrive at the location for the third quest, which has this green-like, almost toxic atmosphere that they all instantly notice. According to Kota's analysis, the map is identical to the game's content, so the boss room should be located just a few meters ahead. With that said, Ryoma tells his buddies that this quest might be their easiest one yet, because there are not any traps in sight. Even so, Ayaka calls him back to reality, to let him know that things Kota does not anticipate can still happen ahead, so they should be super careful. Right after agreeing with Ayaka's suggestion, Kota urges his crew to proceed carefully without letting their guard down, and so they all get moving. After taking down a few zombies along the way, Kota and his buddies finally make it to the boss room. There, they find this abominable creature with one large head-like structure for its upper torso and humanoid legs for the lower part. Totally grossed out by this weird monster, Ayaka asks Kota how he plans on defeating it, and Kota starts his explanation by telling them that the monster's tentacles are the troublesome parts because they attack blind spots. So if they are going to fight it, then all 3 of them need to cooperate and fight while covering all directions, meaning they always have to watch each other's backs. Soon after getting the message across, Kota gives the signal to approach the monster, and almost instantly, Ayaka and Ryoma push forward with their leader. The moment the monster spots them coming, it releases its tentacles and tries to attack them from their blind spots. However, when it notices just how coordinated the trio is, seeing as they defend all its blind spot attacks, it switches to full-on offensive mode and captures Ryoma in its tentacles. Seeing her partner in trouble, Ayaka naturally rushes to help him out, but unfortunately, before long, the monster also captures her in its tentacles. Luckily for them, before the monster squeezes them to death, Kota swoops in and cuts off all the tentacles holding his buddies down. Before they start round 2, Ryoma asks Kota if they are going to be able to defend against these non-stop attacks, but Kota assures him that now that the monster has gone all out on them, it has to rest for 30 whole seconds to cool down and regain its lost stamina. So, while it rests, Kota tells his people to hit the monster with their strongest technique, so they can deal the most damage yet, and without any hesitation, all 3 fighters strike the monster with strong consecutive attacks, as Kota silently counts the 30-second cooldown period. Once he is done counting the full 30 seconds, he tells his buddies to retreat for now, and prepare for the counterattack. As they retreat, Ryoma, who is shocked, asks Kota how he is able to count the full 30 seconds in a situation like that, and Kota says it is because he has fought this same battle thousands of times in the game, meaning the choreographed movement is already carved into his body. After surviving the monster's counterattack, Kota and his buddies unleash one final attack that knocks down the monster one more time. This time around, Ryoma suggests they quickly finish the monster off in one go, but then Kota tells him to stop and wait to observe what makes this annoying boss monster super troublesome. Turns out that whenever it is slightly beat down, it pretends to be defeated, and then unleashes a powerful counterattack to kill the noobs fighting it. On the other hand, if you can see through the trick, then when it emerges next, it accidentally exposes its weak point, giving them a chance to deal massive damage to it. However, just as Kota and his buddies wait for the monster to get back up and transform into its final form, the zombified gang leader and his goons arrive at their spot, breathing heavily and angrily. When Ayaka spots them coming from beneath the platform they are currently on, she recognizes them instantly as the thugs from the supermarket and tells the boys about it. At first, Ryoma screams at them, thinking they were still normal humans, and tells them to turn back if they do not want to die wasting the lives they saved on pointless revenge. However, once Kota gets a closer look at the thugs, he notices the familiar zombie vibes from them, and almost freezes in shock when he spots the zombified gang leader lunging at him to kill him. Seconds before the gang leader gets to him, Kota finally realizes that the thugs have turned into zombies, so he goes on the defensive and avoids getting bitten by the gang leader. While Ryoma struggles to keep them at bay, he complains to Kota that they were humans just recently, but just then, Ayaka, who is equally as confused, asks Kota, while defending against one of the goons, to explain what is going on. Apparently, the game does not have a complex system where humans turn into zombies, because it is just a simple game where you aim for the goal while defeating zombies that stand in your way. As Kota continues talking and fighting, the third quest's boss suddenly gets up from its slumber and transforms into its final form. Talk about terrible timing. By the time the trio spot the monster getting back up, Ryoma curses it and asks Kota for their next move. With no other place left to run, Kota tells his buddies that they have no other option but to stand and fight both enemies at the same time. Before the chaos begins, however, Ryoma tells Kota that he has never heard about humans turning into zombies, and although Kota agrees with him, he does assure his buddies that there is no other way for them to survive this battle than to fight. At this point, Ryoma suggests that they use the burst attack technique, but Kota tells him that the technique is not useful in their situation. To properly fight this battle, he suggests they split into 2 groups. Ayaka and Ryoma will take care of the boss by thoroughly attacking its weak point, while he defeats the thugs. With the stage set, Ayaka and Ryoma return to fight the monster, while Kota stays back and fights the zombified thugs. Regardless of whether they used to be humans until recently, Kota swears to escape from that spot with his companions, cutting down anything that gets in the way. That being said, he lunges at the small fries first and cuts them up like clockwork. While he is at it, Kota expresses his shock when he realizes that the zombies still have the intelligence to use weapons, almost as if they awakened as zombies or something. As one of the monsters slams his axe on his sword, Kota is still distracted in his mind, thinking about some other random thing, like egos and whatnot. Eventually, he realizes he is losing focus, thinking about unimportant stuff, and instantly does more fighting and less thinking. Seconds later, some of the goon zombies perform a motion he has never seen before, which he notices, but since their movements are somehow too repetitive, he figures he can handle their attacks with improvisation. With that, he baits the zombies to come at him one more time, so he can cut them down easily, and the zombie gang leader takes the bait. Once the gang leader gets close enough, he unleashes a devastating final attack that destroys the gang leader and the rest of his surviving goons, wiping them out from the game world. Soon after wrecking those thugs, Kota glances back to make sure his crew is doing okay. Lucky for him, Ayaka and Ryoma just finished demolishing the boss monster from the third quest. Right after they destroy that thing, Ayaka turns around and asks Kota if he got hurt, while Ryoma's over here bragging about how he totally wrecked that squishy monster. Kota's just happy his friends are still breathing, so he hypes them up for beating such a tough boss. Ryoma's like, "Nah man, we were just using what you taught us." But now that they cleared the third quest, all three of them are curious about what kind of safe room they're getting next. When they grab the keycard and unlock the third safe room, Kota and crew are completely blown away by how massive and fancy this place is. Kota explains to everyone that safe rooms get better based on how hard the quests are, which means the next few quests are going to be way tougher than what they just dealt with. With that in mind, Kota checks out this holographic map on the wall, and realizes this safe room doesn't have what he's looking for either. Ayaka notices him examining the walls and asks what he's trying to find. He tells her he's searching for new info about the world's new features that weren't in the original game. Then Ryoma brings up those zombie punks from earlier, but before Kota can answer, Ryoma asks again if they're gonna turn into zombies too. Since they've survived a bunch of crazy battles and they're still fine, Kota reveals that there are specific zombification conditions from the game. But in his head, he knows they got really lucky that day, because those zombified humans were just thugs who were easy to take out. If they end up fighting zombified humans who are people close to them next time, Kota has no clue what he'll be forced to do when that happens. Meanwhile, Hayato, that red-headed idiot, is running away from a massive horde of zombies somewhere random in the city, whining the whole time and blaming Kota for stealing his status and abandoning him. While he's going on and cursing Kota under his breath, this dude gets distracted and loses his balance when he reaches a building ledge. After struggling and failing to get his footing back, the brainless moron falls into a pool below the building thankfully, and swims out to safety. While he's checking out the area, hoping to find other people or someone to team up with, Hayato suddenly spots this weird shrine-looking stone glowing red, with a demonic sword stuck in it. Even though he's confused at first, the idiot moves closer to the sword, trying to figure out what's up with it. Eventually, when he gets close enough, the demon living inside the sword opens its eyes and possesses him with purple energy. After that, Hayato thinks this is the awakening Kota was talking about earlier, so he grabs the sword with his bare hands and pulls it out, totally enjoying the rush he's feeling. With the demonic sword in hand, this proud fool slowly transforms into a demon, while making threats about taking everything Kota cares about the next time they meet. 3 days later, Kota and his two friends head back to the streets of the destroyed city and spend hours killing zombies and leveling up as much as possible. At one point, during their grind session, Ryoma, after taking down some zombies and leveling up, suggests to Kota that since they've been grinding for 3 days, they should probably challenge the next boss monster. Even though Kota knows Ryoma's right, he reminds him that they can't move to the next stage without finding the green card, which should be around where they are. As they keep searching for the key, Kota comes across a strange building that makes him stop and wonder what it is. When Ayaka stops to look at the same building that's got Kota so puzzled, she gets confused and tells him it's just a regular church. Even so, Kota knows something sketchy about the building because he's never seen a church in the EOZ game before. Before long, Ryoma suggests they check it out to see if the green card's inside, and both Kota and Ayaka follow him in. Inside, they scan the place for a few seconds and quickly realize there are no zombies or items in the main church. Just when Kota's about to relax, thinking he was just being paranoid, they all find one last unexplored room at the back of the church and walk into it. Shortly after, Kota and his friends gasp in shock when they spot a pink-colored totem with the same sword Hayato took stuck in it, sealed inside some experimental glass capsule. As they move closer, Ayaka notices how different it is from the one they touched back at the subway station, so she asks Kota if he can tell what it is. After Kota mentions not seeing these weird totems in the game, Ryoma touches it and realizes it's not even reacting at all. While he keeps examining the capsule, Ryoma spots a small sticker on it with the name Professor Noah written on it and tells Kota. The second Kota hears that name, he shoves Ryoma aside, checks the sticker to confirm the name, and then tells the other two that Noah is the sole designer and creator of the game they're currently trapped in. While Ayaka and Ryoma don't really get why finding out the game's creator is such a big deal, Kota tries to make them understand just how weird it is for a game creator to leave their name inside inside the game. At first, Ryoma suggests maybe they're just an attention seeker, but then Kota figures the name might be there as an Easter egg. At this point, Ayaka asks him what an Easter egg is, and Kota spends the next few seconds explaining the textbook definition of what an Easter egg is. After that, he tells his friends he thinks the totem is part of an Easter egg planted by Professor Noah, and might explain whether all the weird stuff that's happened so far was pre-programmed ahead of time. If that's true, then there's a chance Noah is involved in every messed up thing that's happened since they got transported here. By this time, before Kota loses his mind from overthinking, his friends step in and decide to take him back to the safe room so his brain doesn't explode. On their way back, Kota promises to figure out everything he can about that weird church soon. About an hour later, as the trio heads back to the safe room, they suddenly hear loud zombie groans nearby, along with the distinctive sounds of a specific weapon being used by another fighter. While Ayaka and Ryoma suggest helping the person in trouble, Kota, who recognizes that sound way too well, decides to check it out alone, so the other two can go ahead. With the sun about to set, Ryoma tries talking him out of risking his life, but Kota promises to catch up quickly since his speed stat is high. With that, he climbs up a building toward where the sound's coming from, and eventually finds a pink-haired, busty girl fighting zombies with her awakened mace weapon, which Kota knows is almost impossible to get in the EOZ game world. As he keeps talking to himself, the girl fighting gets trapped and surrounded by an endless horde of zombies. Lucky for her, just as she's about to get trampled by one of the zombies, Kota swoops in, slices the zombie attacking her from behind in half, and grabs her hand. While the girl keeps asking him dumb questions since she doesn't know him, Kota leads her toward what she calls a dead end, and jumps into the sewer water below the platform they're on. So, after ditching the zombies and somehow not dying from that crazy fall, he gets her out of there and pulls her to safety. After that, the girl's totally impressed and asks him how he even knew about a route like that. But before Kota can answer, she's like, "Hey, let go of my hand so I can dry off," and Kota quickly lets go, all flustered. Right around then, he realizes there's no way he can get back to his safe room from where they are, so the girl suggests he come crash at their safe room with them. Kota's shocked and asks what she knows about safe rooms, and the girl introduces herself as Kaede, a 23-year-old office worker who's really into gaming. Before Kota can even say anything, she tells him she wants him to meet her party, and Kota, who's got nowhere else to go, agrees to follow her. A little while later, when they reach her party's safe room, Kaede introduces Kota as the guy who saved her from a super dangerous situation, and asks her big brother to let him stay the night as thanks for saving her life. Before letting Kota stay though, Kaede's big brother goes over Kota's story about how he and his friends got transported to this world, along with his entire university campus, and then mentions that Kota's isekai event happened exactly 2 weeks after they got transported there. At this point, Kota asks if they're like him too, and the big brother, after introducing himself as Eiji, tells him that he, his sister Kaede, and her friend Riri were swallowed up by this mysterious light, just like him, and somehow ended up stuck in this world. Kota takes a second to process all this new info he's learning. Soon enough, Eiji tells Kota that the three of them only managed to survive this long because they figured out the world is really similar to a certain game. When he hears this, Kota's surprised to meet someone else who knows about EOZ in this world, and immediately, Kaede gets all excited and tells Kota that she, her brother, and Riri used to be obsessed with the game for a while. While Eiji claims Kaede dragged him into playing the game against his will, he admits that even though he thought games were pointless at first, he's still really grateful that Kota, as a fellow EOZ player, saved his sister. At this point, Kaede opens her mouth and starts going on and on about some Manhwa alternate reality stuff, where the chosen ones, which in this case are EOZ players, get sucked into the game world. But Kota tells her he's the only survivor at the university who knew EOZ, and she immediately gets bored, mumbling weird nonsense like a kid. Eventually, when she gets over being disappointed, Kaede calls meeting Kota a miracle, and keeps going on about how important EOZ knowledge is for surviving this insane world. A few seconds later, she suggests letting Kota and his friends join them so they can all work together to escape this world, but then Kota tells her that he and his friends couldn't find the green card they've been looking for. When she hears this, Kaede pulls out the green card Kota says he's been searching for, and tells him to use the safe room's radio to call his friends so he can let them know where he is. If anything, she thinks that if they can all take on the fourth boss monster together, there's no telling how much stronger they'll get. After thinking about all the possibilities that come with Kaede having the green card, Kota decides he has no other choice but to agree to join her. So he makes their alliance official by accepting Kaede's offer, and Kaede, after checking with her quiet friend, tells Kota that Riri also thinks he's cool and strong enough to join them. After a quick silence, Eiji, who's also okay with the alliance, demands that Kota hand over all his weapons if he's planning on staying at the safe room for the night. When Kaede calls out her big brother for being rude, with Kota saying his intentions are pure, Eiji explains that while he knows the game doesn't give any benefit for humans fighting each other, the fact that Kota's a living human being means he could do something stupid on impulse. Because of this, Eiji just wants to play it safe for the night, and that makes sense. Understanding where Eiji's coming from, Kota agrees with him and decides to hand over his weapon. With that taken care of, Eiji dismisses everyone after promising to meet up with Kota's friends the next day to take on the next quest. A few minutes later, as Kaede and Kota wash the dishes, Kaede apologizes to Kota for her brother's strict behavior earlier, saying she invited him to play EOZ to help him loosen up a bit, and Kota assures her that he gets Eiji was just being super careful, which is fine. That said, Kaede starts talking about Kota as a person, who she finds interesting, because since she's been chatting with him, he seems like a normal, quiet guy, unlike when he was fighting the zombies, and had totally different eyes. Embarrassed, Kota apologizes for being two-faced, and tells her that he got so desperate to save her back then that he lost control of himself. Plus, given how badly he wants to escape from this place with his friends, Kota says he swore he'd do anything to protect them. Around this time, Kaede teases Kota, hinting that his friend might be his girlfriend, but Kota, who's super embarrassed now, tells her that Ayaka and Ryoma are just his childhood friends, nothing more. Even so, Kaede moves really close to him and keeps teasing him, hoping he'll somehow start seeing her in a more romantic way. When Kota gets all nervous and backs down, she laughs, apologizes for being too pushy, and lets him know she can take care of herself just fine. Right then, Eiji walks into the kitchen and scolds his little sister for bothering Kota when he has a big boss battle scheduled for the next day. Realizing he might have a point, Kaede handles the rest while Kota goes to rest. After leaving the kitchen, Kota radios Ayaka and Ryoma to fill them in on everything that's happened in the last few hours. Although they're happy to hear he's doing fine, they scold him for not contacting them sooner, and Kota apologizes for all that. After that, he tells them about their meetup scheduled for the next day, and reassures them, after giving them several reasons, that they can trust Kaede and her big brother. Even though he knows he can trust them, he still worries there might be casualties if their teamwork falls apart when facing this next huge, unprecedented enemy.